Hi everybody, welcome to or welcome back to the Two-Spirit Apothecary, where we learn about tarot, palmistry, Native American practices, traditional practices, animal medicine, herbalism, all kinds of different witchy things. In this video today, I just want to get right to it. I want to talk about what is Two-Spirit. I am Two-Spirit, as you guys probably gathered, which means that I am gay. But what exactly does that mean? What flavor of gay? What type of gay? It's not as simple as just being a part of the LGBT community. You might have been, hearing about the Two-Spirit identity on TikTok, on social media lately. You might even recognize it as the two in the LGBTQ2 plus community, like the digit 2. It's still greatly misunderstood, and I just want to be here to clear it up for you guys because I am a part of a Native American tribe. I am Chickasaw, and so I identify as Two-Spirit, and what that means to my culture is going to be different from what it means to other Native American tribes. So I'm going to talk about like kind of a generalized definition, and then I'll get into what it specifically means for me and what it specifically means for my tribe. So, Two-Spirit identity is an intersectional identity. It doesn't just mean, being queer. You have to also be indigenous. So indigenous and queer, those two identities are intersectional and they cannot be separated in the Two-Spirit identity. That means that identifying as Two-Spirit is closed to Native people. If you're not Native American, then you cannot refer to yourself as Two-Spirit because it is literally impossible for you to be Two-Spirit. A lot of people think that Two-Spirit is just a gender identity, and that's because tribes tend to have more than two gender identities. They tend to have like 3, 4, 5 genders, and those genders look different for every single tribe. They aren't always your traditional white LGBTQ gender identity. So it can't be summed up as transgender or gender fluid. It really can't be. It can be similar, but it's just not as simple as that. It's just not as simple as being non-binary. You can't say Two-Spirit is just the indigenous non-binary. Two-Spirit is the indigenous trans, the indigenous gender fluid. That's just not accurate. In fact, it might not even have anything to do with gender queerness at all. It is possible to be Two-Spirit and not be genderqueer. It's kind of an umbrella term for the LGBT community. Pretty much anything can fit into it. So a Two-Spirit person can be lesbian, it can be a gay man, gender fluid, non-binary, trans, literally any type of queer. Anytime that you stray from the norm of what your birth gender is, that can be an indication that somebody is Two-Spirit. And you know what? The most surprising thing to people is that not always do you have to actually be queer. You don't actually always have to be a part of the LGBT community. Some Two-Spirit people are just, what you might call like a tomboy or like a really feminine man. It's not necessarily about who you sleep with, not necessarily about your gender identity, but a lot of times, most of the time it is. That is a huge indication of somebody being Two-Spirit. Other aspects of being Two-Spirit include your role in certain ceremonies. In ceremonies like stomp dancing, for example, traditionally, in my culture, in the Chickasaw culture, the women keep the beat during the stomp dancing with your toe shakers, and they keep them like on their ankles so that whenever they stomp, it makes like a shaking sound to help everybody keep the beat of the stomp dance. And the men traditionally are the ones that sing. Now you might think in American society, in American culture, usually the women are the ones that do something like the singing and the pretty artistic part of it all, and then the men keep the beat of the song. They're playing the instruments, they're playing the drums. But that's not how it is in Chickasaw culture, because we actually are a matrilineal society. We are a matriarch, so we hold our women in very high regards. Now the Two-Spirit identity traditionally in Chickasaw culture would be able to kind of go in and out of those two roles or some combination of them. And it's pretty difficult and rare to find a group of people or a family that stomp dances and allows two-spirit people to be out and be safe and be a part of that role due to colonization, due to the effect that the colonists and Christianity and the missionaries had on our culture. And it's just really unfortunate. Whenever I go to stomp dances, I don't sing, but I tend to stand where a guy would stand, and I keep the beat the way that a girl would. That's just because that's what makes me happy. So it's supposed to be girl, boy, girl, boy, girl, boy in the circle, and I will stand where a boy is supposed to stand. So nobody's ever really said anything to me about it, so, you know, other people might just think I don't know what I'm doing, but oh well. All two-spirited people like Pepsi. So the point is that in traditional native ceremonies like stomp dancing, the two-spirit people are able to kind of do, you know, a unique role, a unique task, a unique duty. They're also typically seen as, you know, shaman of the tribe, as medicine men, which would mean that they are into lots of types of like divination. I have here my medicine cards. This is for animal medicine specifically. They didn't probably use cards traditionally. What they actually did is they had a bag of different animal bones and teeth, or, you know, an eagle talon, or, you know, a bear claw, or, you know, a part of a deer hoof or something. What they would do is, you know, pull them out with, you know, the influence of ancestors or spirit guides, and that would be kind of like, you know, like how you would think of tarot. So each type of animal medicine represents a whole list of things that you might be experiencing, a list of advice that they might be able to give you. This form of divination was also used to assign people totems. Typically, people actually have like 9 different totems, and they can change throughout your life, but very rarely. And it was usually the two-spirit people who were able to assign you your totems. Now, that is something that comes with very high levels of shamanism, and it has to take a lot of experience, a lot of age, and a lot of time, and a lot of study to be able to do something like that. You really have to work on your relationship with the ancestors and with spirit guides to be able to do that. But using cards, you can still do the same thing. There are different types of spreads that you can do, and I am learning them. Right now, I'm just kind of trying to practice learning what each type of animal medicine really means. And different spreads, they would eventually pick 9 different animals, and those would be your 9 different totems, and they would represent different parts of yourself. That was a role often held by the shaman, who was usually two-spirit. So if somebody was queer, if somebody was genderqueer, they were held in very, very high regards by the tribe. Do you realize how completely flip-flop that is to American society, or, you know, European society, white society? It seems mind-blowing. You know what I mean? Because queer people are so oppressed in America, and women are so oppressed in America, and then men are at the top. And it's just completely flipped upside down, and that's kind of one big reason that my heart aches for everything that we've lost through colonization. The modern two-spirit person, like me, part of our goal is to heal that colonization in America. We are supposed to educate and get back to that point. Our main goal is to help bridge the divide between the 2 different sexes, and between really 2 different parties in general throughout life. We are that middleman. That is a task, that is a duty that has been assigned to us by the Creator. That is why He gave us both masculine and feminine spirit. So having that unique perspective to know what it's like for a woman and for a man is just the beginning. We are supposed to understand each side of the coin of every coin. That's what we are. We are healers, and that's where the medicine comes in. A lot of times, we would have apothecaries traditionally, where people would come to us and ask to heal physical ailments, and we would use herbs, we would use, you know, different teas and different things that we find in nature to help heal people. And so that is another thing that modern two-spirited people need to do. We need to educate ourselves on our traditional practices. As you can see, it is so much more complicated than just a gender identity. It is so much more than that. In fact, if you are Native American and you are queer, that doesn't mean that you are Two-Spirit. That does not mean that you were meant to be Two-Spirit. That does not mean that you were meant to walk the shamanic path that we are assigned to walk. Sometimes people don't handle oppression the way that a Two-Spirit person would. Sometimes people have different amazing, incredible goals and duties that don't have anything to do with healing or anything to do with bridging the divide, you know?
I realized that when I said that Two-Spirited people handle oppression differently, that probably made it sound like they handle it better, but that's not what I meant. In fact, Two-Spirited people typically have a horrible time with oppression so that they can understand the pain and the need for change.
So, what does this look like for me? What does the gay part of my identity look like? Now, I have really identified with, I guess, the white, in white LGBT terms, the trans man identity. But, you know, it is still a little bit fluid. I will have moments or days where I feel, you know, like I don't really have a gender, or kind of in between, or even like a girl. And there's been times in my life that I can look back when I think, you know what, maybe that day I was okay with being a girl. But I have been plagued with severe dysphoria for most of my life, if not my entire life, even as early as my childhood. And so I think that I'm most likely going to continue with my transition, and hopefully that will make me happy. But again, this is such a long path. It is so much more complicated than just being a trans person or a genderqueer person. So you guys are gonna be here along for the ride, and if you do embark on this journey with me, I really appreciate it. Now, I told you guys I would get into specifically what Two-Spirit looks like for my tribe. My tribe, as far as I understand, as far as I know right now, has 4 different genders. There's the masculine on masculine, feminine on feminine, and then there's the masculine to feminine and feminine to masculine. I would fit into that feminine to masculine role. Again, this can look like a tomboy. This can look like a trans man. This can look like a lesbian. This can look like a bi girl. This can look like so many different things. For the Chickasaw tribe, the gender identity that I would fit into, which is the female to male, is called Hatukoba. And I might not be pronouncing these completely perfect. Our language was illegal until the 1970s, so everybody has a little bit of their own way of pronouncing things. But that is what I consider myself. For individuals that are Two-Spirit, that are the masculine to feminine, they refer to themselves as Hatukiklana. So that would be the other identity. And then there's just man and woman in addition to those two. There are hundreds upon hundreds of tribes that have Two-Spirited identities and multiple different Two-Spirited identities, so I cannot unfortunately get through all of them with you guys, but I wish that I could. Hey, my cats try to kill each other sometimes. That is my general introduction to the Two-Spirit identity. I hope that it has been helpful. If there happen to be any Two-Spirited Indigenous people or Indigenous people watching who think that they might be Two-Spirit or are beginning their Two-Spirit journey, and you just don't know how to learn all of these different things that you're supposed to do, you don't know how to figure out what you're supposed to do, especially if it's difficult for you to be in contact with your tribe and a lot of your culture is lost, don't fret, because your ancestors are here for you. Your spirit guides are here to guide you. You need to open your heart and your mind to them, some basic types of divination so that you can converse with your ancestors. I also use tarot. That's okay to use tarot as well. It's okay to use a mixed practice as long as you're not culturally appropriating any other cultures, especially if you're a mixed native. I highly encourage you to look into your other ancestral lines and what these types of practices and what kinds of divination they had in that culture as well. Like I've said in previous videos, I'm also Irish and Scottish, and so I've looked a little bit into Celtic practices, but I really need to look into them more. My Celtic ancestors are not happy about that. Be open-minded, and I really highly recommend reading from actual books rather than the internet and Google. Google and the internet can be a very useful tool, but you have to be very cautious. If you're going to read anything online, Also, if you're going to read any books that you might pick up from like half price books or whatever, somewhere from the occult section, look into the authors. Find out who they are. Find authors that closely align with your beliefs, with your native culture. So I read from people that are typically from the like southeastern woodland tribes. So the 5 main tribes down here, which are Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek. And of course, it's okay and good to branch yourself out and learn about others as well, because the Plains tribes have incredible things to learn as well. Yeah, that's pretty much all for today. Sorry if this video ended up kind of long, but the Two-Spirit identity it's a very complex identity, so hopefully maybe the length of the video speaks to that. It's not as simple as being gender fluid or something like that. So let me know in the comments below if you guys have any questions, or if there's any other videos that you want me to make, anything that you want me to kind of clarify or build upon. I would be more than happy to do so. And I guess that's all. I hope that you guys have a bearable week, and yeah, drink your tea, go for a walk, and keep your moccasins dry. All right, bye.